Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive, especially for our Vintage Car Chronicles listeners out there. We're going to be looking at the Fiat 500, this iconic little car that's really, captured the hearts of so many. And we're going to be going through its history from its humble beginnings all the way to its modern-day revival. It's a journey that's full of surprising twists and turns. And you might think you know the Fiat 500, but I bet you're not ready for some of the stuff we're about to uncover, like its quirky suicide doors. It's a connection to Mickey Mouse. And even a surprising link to the space race. So to guide us through this fascinating history, we have an expert riding shotgun. Welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. The Fiat 500 is, it's more than just a car. It's really a reflection of Italian history, design, and culture.
I love that. So let's start our engines and head back to post-World War II Europe. So imagine a continent rebuilding with a desperate need for affordable transportation. It was the era of the people's car, things Volkswagen Beetle, Citroën 2CV, and the Fiat 500 was right there in the mix.
Absolutely. The need to get Europe moving again was paramount. And, Fiat was already making waves with the 600, the 500's predecessor. And the 600's success showed that there was a real appetite for these small, economical cars.
Yeah, for sure. Now, here's something that might surprise you. Most people, when they think of the Fiat 500, they think of the cute Nuova 500 from 1957. But that's not the whole story, is it?
No, it isn't. The story actually begins in 1936 with the original Fiat 500, nicknamed the Topolino, which translates to Little Mouse, or as some fondly called it, Mickey Mouse.
Wow, a car named after Mickey Mouse. That's adorable. So what was this pre-war 500 like? It must have been pretty different from the Nuova we all know and love.
Oh, it certainly was a product of its time. This tiny car was a really big deal in pre-war Italy. It was designed to be, ultra affordable, almost like a motorized scooter. And while it might have been small, it packed a surprisingly large 595cc engine. Quite a powerhouse for a little mouse, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a contrast to the later models. Now, fast forward to 1957, Fiat set out to create an even cheaper, even smaller car than the 600. And this is where the Nuova 500 enters the stage. What were the key design goals behind this car?
Imagine something almost scooter-like in its affordability. That was Fiat's vision. So to achieve this, they went with a rear engine layout, which maximized space in the tiny cabin. They even opted for a fabric sunroof to save weight and cost compared to a metal one.
Really pushing the limits of minimalism. So are there any compromises in terms of features?
Oh, absolutely. The initial Nuova 500 was incredibly basic. We're talking no roll-down windows, a bare-bones interior. It was all about getting people from point A to point B as cheaply as possible.
And I imagine that didn't resonate with everyone. Was there any pushback from buyers who were used to the 600, which, was a little bit more comfortable?
You're right. Initially, the reception to the Nuova 500 was lukewarm. People questioned the value proposition considering the Spartan features and the small 13-horsepower engine. Plus, the price difference compared to the 600 wasn't as dramatic as some had hoped.
So how did Fiat respond to this kind of lukewarm reception?
Well, to their credit, they listened to the feedback and they acted quickly. They added a back seat, increased the engine power, and introduced a Normal version. With a few more standard features, they were determined to make the Nuova 500 a success.
It's a good lesson in listening to your customers. And that brings us to the 1960s, a decade of evolution and innovation for the Fiat 500. So what were some of the key changes during this period?
The 500's evolution through the 60s is fascinating. First, you have the D model featuring a clever half sunroof, a nod to both practicality and that, open-air feeling. Then in 1965 came the F model, which finally did away with the rear-hinged suicide doors and introduced front-hinged ones. And believe it or not, some people actually mourned the loss of those quirky doors.
Oh, really? I find that so fascinating. What was it about those suicide doors that were so popular?
Well, they had a certain charm, and some people found them more practical for, tight parking spaces. But from a safety perspective, front-hinged doors were definitely an improvement. However, Fiat did keep the suicide doors on one model for a few more years, the Giardiniera estate version. And they were able to do this because it was technically classified as a commercial vehicle, which allowed it to sidestep new safety regulations.
Clever workaround. So apart from the door drama, what else was changing with the 500 during this period?
Well, Fiat continued to refine the 500, introducing the practical Giardiniera estate, which proved to be a huge hit for families. They also launched the more luxurious Lusso, or L trim, for buyers seeking a touch more style and comfort. And what's remarkable is how the 500's popularity kept climbing throughout the 60s, demonstrating that Fiat was successfully adapting to evolving customer needs.
It sounds like the Fiat 500 was really hitting its stride during this period.
It was, but as with all good things, the original 500's run eventually came to an end.
So tell us what led to the curtain call for this iconic car.
Well, in 1972, Fiat introduced the 500R, or Rinnovata, which means renewed. This model featured an updated engine borrowed from the Fiat 126. This new engine wasn't just a random swap, it brought improved fuel efficiency and performance, something that buyers at the time were increasingly looking for. But the 500 successor, the Fiat 126, was already on the horizon, and in 1975, production of the 500 finally ceased.
But what a run it had. Over 4 million Fiat 500s were produced, solidifying its place as a true icon of Italian automotive history.
Absolutely. The Fiat 500 became a symbol of Italy's post-war economic boom, and it really perfectly captured the spirit of La Dolce Vita.
I love that. So speaking of its, iconic status, what do you think made the Fiat 500 such an enduring symbol? What is it about this little car that continues to captivate people even today?
It's a combination of factors, really. The timing was perfect. The 500 arrived just as Italy was experiencing an economic miracle. People had money to spend, and they wanted a car that was fun, affordable, and reflected their newfound optimism. And the 500, ticked all those boxes.
So it was more than just a car. It was a symbol of progress, of a nation on the rise.
Precisely. And let's not forget that, undeniable Italian charm. The 500 was cute, quirky, and full of personality. Plus, it was incredibly practical. The perfect car for zipping through the narrow streets of Italian cities, squeezing into those impossibly tight parking spaces.
It really was a car that perfectly mirrored the needs and desires of its time. And as we'll see, that ability to reflect the times is a recurring theme in the Fiat 500 story. But before we dive into its later chapters, let's take a quick detour and explore the world beyond Fiat's own factory. Did you know there's a whole ecosystem of 500-based cars out there?
Oh, absolutely. The 500's design was so appealing and adaptable that it spawned a whole range of fascinating derivatives. You had quirky variations like the Autobianchi Bianchina with its distinctive styling. Then there were the Abarth Performance models, which transformed the cute little 500 into a pocket rocket. And who could forget the Gita Jolly, the ultimate beach car with its wicker seats and open-air design.
It's amazing how the Fiat 500's design lent itself to so many different interpretations. And these derivatives are a testament to its enduring influence.
They are, and the fact that these derivatives are highly sought after by collectors today speaks volumes about the 500's lasting impact on car design. But the 500's story doesn't end there. In fact, things get really interesting when we jump ahead to the 21st century. Remember that theme of reflection I mentioned earlier? Well, in 2007, 50 years after the original launch, Fiat decided to revive the 500, and they did so in a way that perfectly captured the spirit of the times.
I'm already intrigued, but before we dive into that revival, we want to hear from you. What stands out to you so far about the Fiat 500's journey? Is it those, rebellious early years, the clever design evolutions, or the sheer variety of models it inspired? Head over to the Vintage Car Chronicles page and let us know your thoughts. We'll be back soon to continue this deep dive into Fiat 500 history.
So what's fascinating about this revival is how Fiat managed to walk that tightrope between nostalgia and innovation. They understood that the new 500 couldn't just be a carbon copy of the original. It had to capture the essence of the 500 for, a new generation.
It's like they had to bottle the magic of the original and translate it for a modern audience. What were some of the key design choices that helped them achieve that?
Well, they kept the iconic silhouette, those rounded headlights, the bubbly shape, the overall cuteness, but they refined it with modern touches, smoother lines, more sophisticated details, and of course the technology was light years ahead of its predecessor. They took the DNA of the original and gave it a 21st century makeover.
And it worked. The new 500 was a sensation.
Oh, it was. The new 500 resonated with both those who had, fond memories of the original and a whole new generation of buyers who were drawn to its retro charm and chic styling. It proved that good design is truly timeless.
One thing that really struck me about the new 500 was the level of customization. You could really create a 500 that was unique to you.
Absolutely. Fiat understood the importance of personalization. They offered just a dizzying array of colors, trims, and accessories, allowing buyers to create a 500 that reflected their individual style. You could have anything from a vintage-inspired two-tone paint job to a sporty body kit. It was like designing your own fashion statement on wheels.
Yeah, and really tapped into that desire for self-expression that's so prevalent today. And speaking of expressing different sides of the 500, Fiat also released several variations, much like they did with the original.
Yes, they did. You had the 500C, the convertible version, which was perfect for soaking up the sun. And for those who wanted a bit more space and a touch of ruggedness, there was the 500X, a compact crossover, showcasing the versatility of the 500 platform, proving it could adapt to different lifestyles and needs.
Right, and then of course came the electrification of the Fiat 500 with the 500e in 2020. It seems like such a natural progression for this city car.
It does, doesn't it? The 500e retained the charm of the original while embracing the future of mobility, and they even brought back those iconic suicide doors. It was a brilliant way to honor the past while looking ahead.
It really does feel like they've come full circle, weaving together the past, present, and future of the Fiat 500 in a really compelling way.
I agree. It's a testament to Fiat's understanding of the 500's legacy and their ability to adapt it for the modern world. But the 500's story is much bigger than just Fiat, isn't it? It's about how a car can become a cultural touchstone, a symbol of a nation's spirit and ingenuity.
Yeah, as we've been, driving through this deep dive, I can't help but picture all the different ways people have experienced the Fiat 500. You have the Italians zipping around Rome, tourists cruising the Amalfi Coast, Americans embracing that Italian flair on the streets in New York.
And let's not forget those who've experienced the thrill of driving a souped-up Abarth version. That's a whole different kind of 500 experience.
It's amazing to think about the sheer variety of lives this little car has touched. It's a testament to its enduring appeal and its ability to connect with people from all walks of life.
It speaks to the power of good design and how a car can become more than just a machine. It can become a companion, a statement, a symbol of who you are.
When we talk about iconic car designs, what often comes to mind are like groundbreaking innovations or revolutionary technologies. But with the Fiat 500, it seems like it's more about capturing a feeling, an emotion.
I think you're right. The Fiat 500 embodies a sense of joy, simplicity, and freedom. It's a car that makes you smile just looking at it. A car that invites me to take life a little less seriously and just enjoy the ride.
Like a shot of espresso on wheels.
Exactly. It's that little burst of energy and personality, and that's something that transcends language barriers and cultural differences. The Fiat 500 speaks to a universal desire for something fun, stylish, and a bit unconventional.
I love that. So it's not just about the nuts and bolts. It's about the way a car makes you feel, the experiences it enables you to have.
Absolutely. The best car designs forge a connection with you, become an extension of your personality, and reflect your lifestyle. They become part of your story. And that's certainly true of the Fiat 500.
And speaking of stories, let's rewind back to 2007 when Fiat took that big gamble and brought back the 500 after a 32-year hiatus. What were your initial thoughts when you heard about this revival? Were you excited, skeptical, or maybe a bit of both?
I think I felt what many car enthusiasts felt at the time, a mix of excitement and trepidation. Reviving an icon is always risky. You want to honor the original while also making it relevant for a new audience. The pressure was definitely on Fiat to get it right.
It must have been like walking a tightrope between honoring the past and embracing the future.
Exactly, but I have to say, Fiat managed to pull it off brilliantly. They kept the core design elements that made the original so beloved, but they gave it a modern twist. It was fresh, it was stylish, and it felt like a genuine evolution of the 500, not just a cheap imitation.
It was like they took the soul of the original and poured it into a thoroughly modern package.
That's a great way to put it, and the success of the new 500 is a testament to their approach. It captured the hearts of both those who remember the original fondly and those who are experiencing the 500 magic for the first time. It really showed that good design is timeless and that a well-executed revival can be just as compelling as the original.
And Fiat didn't stop there, did they? They went on to create several variations of the new 500, further expanding its appeal and reach.
You're right, we've already mentioned the 500C convertible and the 500X crossover, but there are other special editions and limited runs. Each with its unique personality and appeal. It showed just how versatile the 500 platform is and how it can be adapted to different tastes and needs.
And of course, we can't forget the Fiat 500e, the all-electric version that launched in 2020. It feels like the perfect evolution for this city car, combining its iconic style with zero-emission driving.
It's a brilliant move by Fiat, isn't it? The 500e taps into the growing demand for electric vehicles while staying true to the 500's spirit. And the fact that they brought back those iconic suicide doors for the 500e just adds to its charm and appeal.
It's a fantastic example of how a classic design can be reimagined for a modern audience without losing its soul. It makes you wonder, though, what does the future hold for the Fiat 500? Will it continue to evolve, or will it eventually fade into automotive history?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The automotive industry is changing rapidly, with new technologies and trends emerging all the time, but I think the Fiat 500 has a few things working in its favor. First, it has that iconic design that continues to resonate with people across generations. And second, it's proven to be incredibly adaptable, evolving from a simple city car to a platform that can accommodate convertibles, crossovers, and even electric powertrains.
So you're saying that its adaptability is key to its survival.
I think so. The 500 has shown that it's not afraid to change with the times, while still staying true to its core identity. That kind of flexibility is essential in today's automotive world.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from the humble beginnings of the Topolino to the electric future of the 500e. But there's one question I keep coming back to. What do you think the Fiat 500's lasting legacy will be? How will it be remembered in the grand scheme of automotive history? We'll explore that and more as we wrap up our deep dive in the final part. But first, a quick word from our sponsors. And we're back with our Fiat 500 deep dive, made especially for you Vintage Car Chronicles listeners out there. It's been quite a journey, tracing the evolution of this little car that's really become a global icon.
It has. The Fiat 500 story is one of, innovation, adaptation, and enduring appeal.
For sure. Before we wrap things up, though, I want to revisit that question I posed before the break. What do you think the Fiat 500's lasting legacy will be? How will it be remembered? In the grand scheme of automotive history. I mean, we've seen how it impacted Italy, after the war, became a symbol of la dolce vita, and even reinvented itself for the 21st century. So how will history remember the Fiat 500?
Well, that's a great question, and one that's not, easy to answer definitively. I think the Fiat 500's legacy is multifaceted. On a practical level, it played a crucial role in putting Italy and really much of Europe back on wheels after World War II. It made car ownership accessible to the masses, which had a huge impact on people's lives and on the development of European society.
Yeah, it like democratized the car, so to speak.
Exactly. It gave people freedom, mobility, and a sense of independence that they hadn't had before. But the 500's impact goes, far beyond just practicality. It became a cultural symbol, an embodiment of Italian ingenuity, style, and that zest for life that we associate with Italy.
It was like a tiny ambassador for Italian culture, spreading that La Dolce Vita spirit wherever it went.
I love that analogy. It really did capture the essence of Italy in a way that few other products have. And that, cultural impact is still felt today. The 500 is recognized and loved all over the world. It's, the design is instantly recognizable, its charm is undeniable, and its story continues to inspire.
Yeah, and its story is really one of reinvention, isn't it? The Fiat 500 has adapted to, changing times and tastes. From those early models with, we've talked about the suicide doors to the modern electric 500e, it's a testament to the enduring power of good design and a willingness to evolve.
Absolutely. The 500's ability to stay true to its core identity while embracing change is remarkable. It's a reminder that, we don't have to be stuck in the past to appreciate our heritage. We can find ways to bring the best of what was into the present and future.
Right. It's about evolution, not revolution. It makes you wonder, though, what would the designers of the original Fiat 500 think if they could see the 500e today?
I imagine they'd be amazed by the technology, of course, but I also think they'd be proud to see that, their creation is still relevant and beloved over 80 years later. They designed a car for the people, and that spirit is still alive and well in the 500e.
That's a legacy anyone would be proud of. Now, as we prepare to kind of park this deep dive into Fiat 500 history, I want to pose a question to our Vintage Car Chronicles listeners. If you could choose any version of the Fiat 500 to take for a spin, which would it be? Would you go for the vintage charm of the original Nuova, the sporty thrill of an Abarth, or the eco-conscious coolness of the 500e? Picture yourself, behind the wheel cruising down your favorite road. Let us know your choice on the Vintage Car Chronicles page. A huge thank you to you for being such a fantastic guide on this journey through Fiat 500 history. Your insights and knowledge have been invaluable.
The pleasure was all mine. It's always a treat to delve into the story of, such an iconic and beloved car.
And to all of you Vintage Car Chronicles listeners, thank you for joining us for this special deep dive. Don't forget to tune into The Daily Show for more automotive adventures, fascinating stories, and the latest news from the world of cars. Until next time, keep those engines revving.